The White House. The White House includes 6 stories and 55,000 square feet of floor space, 132 rooms and 35 bathrooms, 412 doors, 147 windows, 28 fireplaces, 8 staircases, 3 elevators, 5 full-time chefs, a tennis court, a single-lane bowling alley, a movie theater, a jogging track, a swimming pool, and a putting green. The original residence is in the center. 2 colonnades, one on the east and one on the west, designed by Thomas Jefferson, now serve to connect the east and west wings that were added later. The executive residence houses the president's dwelling, as well as rooms for ceremonies and official entertaining. It receives up to 30,000 visitors each week. The President's House was a major feature of Pierre Charles L'Enfant's 1791 plan for Washington, D.C. George Washington and Thomas Jefferson, his Secretary of State, agreed that the design of the White House and the Capitol would be chosen in a design competition. Washington selected an acceptable drawing for the White House, submitted by Irish-born architect James Hoban, from several, including one submitted anonymously by Jefferson himself. Hoban modeled the White House on Leinster House in Dublin, a building which today houses the Irish legislature. The residence was designed in the neoclassical style. Construction took place between 1792 and 1800 using Aqua Creek sandstone painted white. In 1814, during the War of 1812, the mansion was set ablaze by the British Army in the burning of Washington, destroying the interior and charring much of the exterior. This building was originally variously referred to as the President's Palace, Presidential Mansion, or President's House. The earliest evidence for the public calling it the White House was recorded in 1811. A myth emerged that during the rebuilding of the structure after the burning of Washington, white paint was applied to mask the burn damage it had suffered, giving the building its namesake hue. The name Executive Mansion was used in official contexts until President Theodore Roosevelt established the formal name by having White House, Washington, engraved on the stationery in 1901. Because of overcrowding within the Executive Mansion, President Theodore Roosevelt relocated all work offices to the newly constructed West Wing in 1901. In 1909, President William Howard Taft expanded the West Wing and created the first Oval Office. A newly constructed East Wing was used as a reception area for social events. Jefferson's colonnades connected the new wings. East Wing alterations were completed in 1946, creating additional office space. By 1948, the residence's load-bearing exterior walls and internal wood beams were found to be close to failure. Under Harry Truman, the interior rooms were completely dismantled, and a new internal load-bearing steel frame was constructed inside the walls. The Truman balcony was added to the exterior. Once the structural work was completed, the interior rooms were rebuilt. President Truman lived across the street at Blair House from 1949 to 1941. Congress enacted legislation in September 1961 declaring the White House a museum. Furniture, fixtures, and decorative arts could now be declared either historic or of artistic interest by the President. This prevented them from being sold, as many objects in the Executive Mansion had been in the past 150 years. When not in use or display at the White House, these items were to be turned over to the Smithsonian Institution for preservation, study, storage, or exhibition. The modern-day White House complex includes the Executive Residence, the West Wing, the East Wing, the Eisenhower Executive Office Building, the former State Department, which now houses office for the President's staff and the Vice President, and Blair House, a guest residence. The Executive Residence has 6 stories, the ground floor, state floor, second floor, and third floor, as well as a 2-story basement. The property is a National Heritage Site owned by the National Park Service and is part of the President's Park. The ground floor is made up of the Diplomatic Reception Room, Map Room, China Room, Vermeil Room, Library, the main kitchen, and other offices. The Diplomatic Reception Room is one of three oval rooms in the executive residence of the White House. It is located on the ground floor and is used as an entrance from the South Lawn and a reception room for foreign ambassadors to present their credentials, a ceremony formerly conducted in the Blue Room. The room is the point of entry to the White House for a visiting head of state, following the state arrival ceremony on the South Lawn. The room has 4 doors, which lead to the Map Room, the Center Hall, the China Room, and a vestibule that leads to the South Lawn. The Map Room takes its name from its use during World War II, when Franklin Roosevelt used it as a situation room where maps were consulted to track the war's progress. For such purposes, it was later replaced by the West Wing Situation Room. Today, the room is used for television interviews, small teas, and social gatherings. The China Room is one of the rooms on the ground floor of the White House used to display the White House's collection of state china. The collection ranges from George Washington's Chinese export china to Barack Obama's blue and white themed collection. The room is primarily used by the First Lady for teas, meetings, and smaller receptions. The Vermeil Room is located on the ground floor of the White House. The room houses a collection of silver gilt or vermeil tableware, a 1956 bequest to the White House by Margaret Thompson Biddle. Portraits of American First Ladies hang in the room. The White House Library is on the ground floor of the White House. The room is approximately 27 by 23 feet and is in the northeast corner of the ground floor. The library is used for teas and meetings hosted by the President and the First Lady. During the 1950s, reconstruction of the White House, old building lumber from the house was salvaged and remade into wall paneling for this room. The state floor of the residence building includes the East Room, Green Room, Blue Room, Red Room, State Dining Room, Family Dining Room, Cross Hall, Entrance Hall, and Grand Staircase. The East Room is the largest room in the executive residence. It is used for a wide range of events, such as the swearing in of cabinet members and justices of the Supreme Court, press conferences, the signing of legislation, receptions for foreign dignitaries, dances, ceremonies, concerts, and banquets. The Kennedys often provided entertainment in the East Room after formal diners. 8 presidents have died in office. All but one, James A. Garfield, lay in repose or had a funeral in the East Room. Presidential funerary events held in the East Room include funerary events for William Henry Harrison in 1841, Zachary Taylor in 1850, Abraham Lincoln in 1865, William McKinley in 1901, Warren G. Harding in 1923, Franklin D. Roosevelt in 1945, and John F. Kennedy in 1963. In 1964, President Lyndon B. Johnson signed the Civil Rights Act of 1964 in the East Room on July 2. The ceremony was nationally televised, and more than 100 senators and civil rights leaders attended the event. In 1978, President Carter, Egyptian President Anwar Sadat, and Israeli Prime Minister Menachem Begin signed the Camp David Accords in the East Room on September 17 at 11 p.m. In 1987, President Ronald Reagan and Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev signed the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty, or INF Treaty, in the East Room on December 8. The Green Room is one of the 3 state parlors on the first floor of the White House. The room is approximately 28 by 22.5 feet. It has 6 doors, which open into the Cross Hall, East Room, South Portico, and Blue Room. It is used for small receptions and teas. During a state dinner, guests are served cocktails in the 3 state parlors before the President, First Lady, and a visiting head of state descend the grand staircase for dinner. The room is traditionally decorated in shades of green. The Blue Room is used for receptions and receiving lines and is occasionally set for small dinners. It is distinct for its oval shape. President Grover Cleveland married Frances Folsom in the room on June 2, 1886, the only wedding of a president and first lady in the White House. The room is traditionally decorated in shades of blue. With the yellow oval room above it and the diplomatic reception room below it, the Blue Room is one of 3 oval rooms in James Hoban's original design for the White House. The Red Room is the 3rd state parlor on the state floor in the White House. The room has served as a parlor and music room, and recent presidents have held small dinner parties in it. It has been traditionally decorated in shades of red. The room is approximately 28 by 22.5 feet. It has 6 doors, which open into the Cross Hall, Blue Room, South Portico, and State Dining Room. The State Dining Room is the larger of 2 dining rooms on the state floor of the executive residence of the White House. It is used for receptions, luncheons, larger formal dinners, and state dinners for visiting heads of state on state visits. The room seats 140 people and measures approximately 48 by 36 feet. The Family Dining Room is a dining room located on the state floor of the White House. The room is used for smaller, more private meals than those served in the state dining room. Used in the 1800s as a space for the first family to have their meals, the family dining room was used less for family meals and more for working lunches and small dinners in the 20th and 21st centuries. Family dinners are now more often served on the second floor in the President's dining room. The Cross Hall is a broad hallway on the first floor in the White House. It runs east to west, connecting the state dining room with the East Room. The room is used for receiving lines following a state arrival ceremony on the South Lawn, or a procession of the President and the visiting head of state and their spouses. The space measures just under 18 by 80 feet. It allows access to the elevator vestibule, entrance hall, East Room, Blue Room, Green Room, Red Room, and State Dining Room. The grand staircase is visible from an opening directly across from the East Room. The entrance hall, also called the Grand Foyer, is the primary and formal entrance to the White House. The room measures approximately 31 by 44 feet and is entered from outdoors through the north portico, which faces the north lawn and Pennsylvania Avenue. Thomas Jefferson used the entrance hall as a cabinet of natural history, displaying finds from the Lewis and Clark expedition. In the 20th century, the entrance hall has been used for official welcomes, receiving lines, small concerts, and dancing. John Travolta danced with Diana, Princess of Wales, in 1985. In 1998, First Lady Hillary Clinton danced here with Czech President Václav Havel. The grand staircase is the chief stairway connecting the state floor and the second floor of the White House. The stairway is primarily used for a ceremony called the Presidential Entrance March. The grand staircase is entered on the state floor from the entrance hall. The second floor family residence includes the Yellow Oval Room, East and West Sitting Halls, the White House Master Bedroom, the President's Dining Room, the Treaty Room, the Lincoln Bedroom, and Queen's Bedroom, as well as 2 additional bedrooms, a smaller kitchen, and a private dressing room. The Yellow Oval Room is an oval room located on the south side of the second floor in the White House. First used as a drawing room in the John Adams administration, it has been used as a library, office, and family parlor. Today, the Yellow Oval Room is used for small receptions and for greeting heads of state immediately before a state dinner. The East Sitting Hall is located on the second floor of the White House and was first used as a reception room for guests of the president. The Lincoln Bedroom and the Queen's Bedroom were originally offices of the chief executive. It is now a family parlor with access to the East rooms on the second floor. The West Sitting Hall, located on the second floor of the White House, is used by first families as a less formal living room than the Yellow Oval Room. The President's Bedroom is a second floor bedroom in the White House. The bedroom makes up the White House Master Suite, along with the adjacent sitting room and the smaller dressing room. Prior to the Ford administration, it was common for the President and First Lady to have separate bedrooms. Until then, this room was mostly used as the First Lady's bedroom. However, it was the sleeping quarters for President Lincoln. The room currently used as a living room, immediately west of the Yellow Oval Room, was historically used as the President's private bedroom until the 1970s. The President's Dining Room is a dining room located in the northwest corner of the second floor of the White House. It is located directly above the family dining room on the state floor and looks out upon the north lawn. The dining room is adjacent to the family kitchen, a small kitchen designed for use by the first family and served by a dumbwaiter connected to the main kitchen on the ground floor. The Treaty Room is located on the second floor of the White House. The room is a part of the first family's private apartments and is used as a study by the President. President Bush addressed the nation from the Treaty Room on October 7, 2001, announcing that the war in Afghanistan had begun. On April 14, 2021, President Joe Biden spoke from the same room to announce that the United States would withdraw virtually all remaining United States troops in Afghanistan by September 11, 2021. President Barack Obama used the Treaty Room as one of his primary working offices. The Lincoln Bedroom is a bedroom which is part of a guest suite located in the southeast corner of the second floor of the White House. The room is named for President Abraham Lincoln, who used the room as an office. The Queen's Bedroom is on the second floor of the White House, part of a guest suite of rooms that includes the Queen's sitting room. Before the construction of the West Wing in 1902, it was the usual bedroom and office for presidential private secretaries. Winston Churchill stayed in the room when he visited Presidents Franklin Roosevelt and Harry Truman before and after World War II. Mamie Eisenhower once had her son John and his wife Barbara move to another room because she felt that only queens and similar state guests should stay in this room. Between 1902 and 1963, the room was known as the Rose Room. This is the layout of the West Wing, the first floor of it. The Oval Office is in the West Wing. It is the formal working space of the President of the United States. Part of the executive office of the President of the United States, it is in the West Wing of the White House. The oval-shaped room features three large south-facing windows behind the President's desk and a fireplace at the north end. It has two built-in bookcases and four doors. The east door opens to the Rose Garden. The west door leads to a private study and dining room. The northwest door opens onto the main corridor of the West Wing, and the northeast door opens to the office of the President's secretary. The Oval Office has become associated with the presidency through memorable images, such as a young John F. Kennedy Jr. peering through the front panel of his father's desk, and President Richard Nixon speaking by telephone with the Apollo 11 astronauts during their moonwalk. Several presidents have addressed the nation from the Oval Office. Examples include Kennedy presenting news of the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962, Nixon announcing his resignation from office in 1974, Ronald Reagan after the Space Shuttle Challenger disaster in 1986, and George W. Bush after the September 11 attacks in 2001. The Cabinet Room is the meeting room for the officials and advisors to the President of the United States who constitute the Cabinet of the United States. The room is in the West Wing of the White House, adjoining the Oval Office, and looks out upon the White House Rose Garden. The Situation Room, officially known as the John F. Kennedy Conference Room, is a 5,525 square foot conference room and intelligence management center in the basement of the West Wing of the White House. It is run by the National Security Council staff for the use of the President and his advisors, including the National Security Advisor, the Homeland Security Advisor, and the White House Chief of Staff. It's used to monitor and deal with crises at home and abroad, and to conduct secure communications. The Situation Room is equipped with secure, advanced communications equipment for the President to maintain command and control of U.S. forces around the world. Here you see pictures of the Situation Room being used at historic moments. On the left, National Security Advisor Walter Rostow shows President Lyndon B. Johnson a model of the Khe Sanh area in Vietnam on February 15, 1968. On the right, President Ronald Reagan is briefed on events taking place in Libya in 1986. On the left, President George W. Bush meets with his War Council in the Situation Room on March 21, 2003. And on the right, President Barack Obama and Vice President Joe Biden, along with members of the National Security Team, receive an update on Operation Neptune Spear, a mission against Osama bin Laden on May 1, 2011. The James S. Brady Press Briefing Room is a small theater in the West Wing where the White House press secretary gives briefings to the news media, and the President of the United States sometimes addresses the press and the nation. It is located between the workspace assigned to the White House Press Corps and the Office of the Press Secretary. The first presidential press conference was held in March 1913 in the Oval Office during the presidency of Woodrow Wilson. Subsequently, until 1969, communications from the President and general press news conferences took place in various locations, including the Indian Treaty Room, the State Department Auditorium, and the White House East Room. In 1969, to accommodate the growing number of reporters assigned to the White House, President Richard Nixon had the indoor swimming pool, which had been installed for Franklin D. Roosevelt, covered and turned into press offices, and a lounge that could double as a briefing room. In 2000, the room was renamed in honor of James Brady, the White House press secretary who had been shot and permanently disabled during an assassination attempt on President Reagan in 1981. The Roosevelt Room is a meeting room in the West Wing of the White House. It is named after Presidents Theodore Roosevelt and Franklin D. Roosevelt, who contributed to the wing's design. The Roosevelt Room is used for staff meetings and is increasingly used to announce the appointment or nomination of new staff members. The room is also used as a preparation room by large delegations meeting with the President before entering the Oval Office. With their offices located on the White House grounds, Vice Presidents since Walter Mondale have lived with their families on the grounds of the United States Naval Observatory. Historically, Vice Presidents and their families lived in their own homes, but the cost of securing these private residences grew substantially over the years. Finally, in 1974, Congress agreed to refurbish the house at the Naval Observatory as a home for the Vice President. Walter Mondale was the first Vice President to move into the home. It has since been home to the families of Vice Presidents Bush, Quayle, Gore, Cheney, Biden, and Pence. Vice Presidents have welcomed countless guests to the residence, including foreign leaders and dignitaries. Still, the Naval Observatory has continued to operate. Scientists observe the sun, moon, planets, and selected stars, determine and precisely measure the time, and publish astronomical data needed for accurate navigation. Here you see a picture of Vice President Pence meeting with the President's Coronavirus Task Force in his West Wing office in 2020. In addition to the Vice President's office in the West Wing, the Vice President and his or her staff maintain a set of offices in the Eisenhower Executive Office Building, located next to the West Wing on the White House premises. This office, called the Vice President's Ceremonial Office, served as the Navy Secretary's office when the EEOB housed the State, Navy, and War Departments. Today, the Vice President uses the office for meetings and press interviews. Colloquially known as the Theodore Roosevelt desk, this desk, the Vice President's desk, is part of the White House collection and was first used by President Roosevelt in 1902. Several presidents have chosen to use this desk, including Presidents Taft, Wilson, Harding, Coolidge, Hoover, and Eisenhower. It was placed in storage from December of 1929 until 1945, when it was selected by President Truman. Vice President Johnson and each subsequent Vice President have used the desk. The inside of the top drawer has been signed by its various users since the 1940s. Originally built for the State, War, and Navy departments between 1871 and 1888, the Eisenhower Executive Office Building now houses most offices for White House staff. It was originally known as the State, War, and Navy Building. The building has housed some of the nation's most significant diplomats and politicians and has been the scene of many historic events. When the EEOB was finished in 1888, it was the largest office building in Washington, with nearly 2 miles of black and white tiled corridors. Almost all of the interior detail is of cast iron or plaster. The use of wood was minimized to ensure fire safety. 8 monumental curving staircases of granite with over 4,000 individually cast bronze balusters are capped by 4 skylight domes and 2 stained glass rotundas. The Navy Department moved into the East Wing in 1879, where elaborate wall and ceiling stenciling and marquetry floors decorated the office of the Secretary. The Indian Treaty Room, originally the Navy's library and reception room, has been the scene of many presidential news conferences and continues to be used for conferences and receptions attended by the President. Gradually, the original tenants of the EEOB vacated the building. the Navy Department in 1918, the War Department in 1938, and the State Department in 1947. In 1949, the building was turned over to the Executive Office of the President and renamed the Executive Office Building. The building houses various agencies that comprise the Executive Office of the President, such as the White House Office, the Office of the Vice President, the Office of Management and Budget, and the National Security Council. Vice President Lyndon B. Johnson was the first in a succession of vice presidents to the present day that have had offices in the building. I also want to talk to you a little bit about some parts of the White House complex that are not specifically the White House building itself. So Air Force One is used to designate any Air Force aircraft carrying the president, but it is now standard practice to use the term to refer to specific planes that are equipped to transport the commander-in-chief. Today, this name refers to one of two highly customized Boeing 747-200B series aircraft. Capable of refueling in midair, Air Force One has unlimited range and can carry the president wherever he or she needs to travel. The onboard electronics are hardened to protect against an electromagnetic pulse, and Air Force One is equipped with advanced secure communications equipment, allowing the aircraft to function as a mobile command center in the event of an attack on the United States. Inside, the president and his or her travel companions enjoy 4,000 square feet of floor space on 3 levels, including an extensive suite for the president that features a large office, lavatory, and conference room. Air Force One includes a medical suite that can function as an operating room, and a doctor is permanently on board. The plane's 2 food preparation galleys can feed 100 people at a time. Known formally as the Naval Support Facility Thurmont, Camp David is the President's country residence. Located in Catoctin Mountain Park in Frederick County, Maryland, Camp David has offered every president since Franklin D. Roosevelt an opportunity for solitude and tranquility, as well as an ideal place to work and host foreign leaders. President Franklin Roosevelt originally established the residence, modeling the new main lodge after the Roosevelt Winter Vacation Home in Warm Springs, Georgia. President Eisenhower subsequently renamed the institution in honor of his grandson, David. Camp David has been used extensively to host foreign dignitaries. Prime Minister Winston Churchill of Great Britain attended the first such meeting in May of 1943. The summit held at the residence in 1978 for Egyptian President Anwar al-Sadat and Israeli Prime Minister Menachem Begin resulted in what are now known as the Camp David Accords.